Why do you still suck at the game despite tons of effort to get better? Watching guides every day, watching pro players, playing hours and hours day in and day out. Well, imagine if you could just kind of push through that skill plateau, the thing that's kind of holding you back. Imagine if you could be so good that your stream suddenly pops off, that you're competing on the biggest stages, that you're signing lucrative deals and winning prize money that can set you up for life. Well, chances are that's a complete pipe dream and you'll never make it, at least not as long as you keep getting stuck at the same rank for large portions of the season, making little progress, if any at all. If you really want to reach the pro stage, or at the very least reach a high rank, then you have to overcome that curse of the skill plateau. But in order to reverse that curse, you need to first understand the sort of dark magic that makes it work. Now, obviously, the culprit here isn't exactly magic. It's really just your own mind, something that's equally as mysterious, but a lot easier to deal with. Now, to fix this problem, you need to first gain a better understanding of what your normal journey of learning is like, this sort of unconscious process that happens in your mind as you start to make progress. For example, think back to when you first started playing your game of choice. At first you knew nothing. Your confidence was at an all-time low and admittedly, you sucked. But eventually, through experience and learning, you got better and better at the game. And naturally, as your skills rose, so did your confidence. But this confidence can be a little misleading. In fact, to simplify this process of skill development and confidence, let's think of it in 4 key steps. Step 1 is you suck and you know it. Step 2 is you're not that great, but you're getting better. And step 3 is you still suck, but you don't realize it until step 4 when you're actually starting to get pretty decent. Now, chances are you think you're at step 4 or even beyond it, but in reality, you're probably still at step 3. And if you don't believe me and you think it's really your teammates who are to blame and bad luck, well, I want you to think about this. In an attempt to study human bias, researchers at Cornell University assessed the relationship between subjects' competence and confidence with a certain skill. Their finding was pretty intriguing. It showed that subjects who scored the lowest on logic, grammar, and humor actually rated themselves extremely well in terms of self-measures. So, in other words, the most inexperienced and most unskilled people in the study were surprisingly the most confident. Now, why am I trying to convince you that you actually suck at the game? Am I trying to bully you out of playing it so that there's less competition for me when I'm playing ranked games? Well, as much as that's not a bad idea, the answer is no. I'm trying to give you a bit of tough love because this is what's necessary for you to shift your mindset and start making progress once again. And here is why it's necessary. Your game of choice likely has a normal ranking system which groups you up with people of a similar skill level. Then, as you practice and improve more than others within your rank, you'll end up getting better and better, and you'll eventually outplay most others that you're pitted against. As this happens, your confidence should grow, which is great on the surface, but can hurt you a bit in the long run, especially if it gets the better of you. You'll likely get so good at competing within your rank that eventually you'll get promoted to the next one. And that, for most of us, is a bit shocking because it kind of shows us where our skill level really is. For most of us normal players, to get promoted and then to lose game after game is a bit humiliating. And this is especially devastating if we're several ranks away from where we think we should actually be. And this all ties into the research that I mentioned earlier. In fact, this graph here shows exactly what the process looks like for most of us, a process that's labeled the Dunning-Kruger effect. As you're wiping the floor with low-ranking beginners while you yourself are still a rookie, you're most likely here on the graph, which is termed Mount Stupid. Then, once you get promoted to the next rank, you might end up in the Valley of Despair, where you suddenly realize how much you actually don't know, how much you actually have to improve if you want to truly be good. Now, this sort of up and down of confidence seems to happen every time we rank up. It's like a bunch of these graphs and charts stuck together. And getting stuck at a specific rank is largely in part due to being stuck on Mount Stupid. Admittedly, it's quite nice up there. There's good view, fresh air, and the perception that the next rank is just a few days or weeks away as long as you get decent teammates. But the problem is that in order to maintain that enjoyable confidence, you have to stay in ignorant bliss, constantly assuming that you actually deserve to make progress while ignoring the details of why you're held back. Fortunately, there's hope though, because over time with a new approach, you can grow in terms of skill, and as the graph suggests, you will grow in terms of confidence, a natural, real confidence that's reliable and based in learned experience rather than blissful ignorance. So, how do we avoid falling into the Dunning-Kruger confidence trap, and how do we know whether or not our confidence is reliable? Well, the first thing to address here is that sometimes having overly high confidence isn't really your fault. It's easy to assume that you're a great player when you start to perform like one. For example, consider the games where you play at your peak, at your absolute best, where you suddenly feel like a genius or a mechanical god. You get into a sort of flow state or into the zone and you dominate. Now, if only you could package that up and repeat it in every single game, you would easily be at minimum a full rank higher. But the hard truth is that that is your peak performance, and peak performance isn't reliable. It is literally your peak. Your average is much more indicative of where your rank actually is and where you deserve to be. And if you want to reach a higher rank, you need to do 3 things. The first is to admit to yourself that you don't deserve the next rank yet, and that it's not your teammates' fault. The second is to recognize that your average skill level is far below your peak. And the third is to start building a plan of action to start improving so that both your average and your peak get higher. But we also have to address the elephant in the room, what I call luck. Obviously, I believe that you can't blame all of your ranked losses on bad luck, and you should focus purely on raising your own skill. But of course, luck does exist, and it's worth addressing. Success at any game is always going to be a combination of skill and luck. And of course, the more skilled you are at the game, the less you need to rely on luck, which is great for you. But how much of your success actually comes down to skill, and how much of it is luck? Is it, say, 80% you and 20% luck? Well, unfortunately, we can't know. Even most statisticians and game analysts don't really have this mapped out. What you must never do, though, is assume that luck has nothing to do with your wins and losses. And specifically, I want to focus on your wins here. We often assume a lot of our losses come down to bad luck, but rarely do we attribute our wins to good luck. And this is another trap. You can't trust success in wins completely. You have to look a lot deeper. Wins are kind of like a voice from the game that's telling you how good you are. But unfortunately, that voice sometimes lies. You have to know when it's lying if you want to actually improve. For example, let's pretend that you're a rookie Rocket League player, and I know a lot of you guys don't play Rocket League, but it's worth it to bear through the example. Now let's just say you won 3 1v1 ranked matches in a row, but your shot stats, save stats, and goal shot ratio were well below the average number of players in your rank. If you've achieved this, you've only proved one thing, and that is that you were much luckier than your opponents. And this means that you can't really take much credit for those wins, and your wins are unsustainable. It's highly unlikely that you'll actually win 3 more games in a row unless you really improve on those stats, your shots, saves, and other actions that lead to real wins. Of course, it's no coincidence that the best players in any game also do have the best stats. So working on as many skills as possible, as well as frequently measuring those skills, is a great way to understand how much of your success comes down to real skill versus luck. And knowing this information about yourself will not only help you to base your confidence on true metrics, but will also help you to zoom in on the skills that you need to work on to really become a better player. Not many players adopt such nuance in their training, so getting nerdy about stats gives you a real advantage over the competition. And most games have the ability to track these kind of stats using free tools, usually third-party tools like Mobalytics, Leadify, Tracker Network, and so on. And it's also worth noting that this kind of stat tracking won't give you a full picture of what you need to improve, so doing things like VOD reviewing or getting friends, teammates, and coaches to give you feedback will all add to this entire process of learning and dissolving your ego. And finally, consider your mindset. Confidence is great when it comes to performance, but not as much when it comes to training. fear is your enemy when it comes to a pivotal match or a round that could completely change the game. And confidence is what breaks fear. But fear of not being good enough is also what motivates you to get better. So when you're not performing, you're not in an intense peak situation, you have to assume that you're not good enough. And you might think that you're already somewhat humble about your skills, but are you really? Do you not fall into the trap of feeling entitled? That feeling that says that you're good enough to reach the next rank, even when you're not. Because that feeling of being good enough to make it, good enough to get the result that you want, is actually what's stopping you from making progress. As soon as you lose the fear that you're not good enough, you'll stop looking for ways to improve. And when you stop looking for ways to improve, you'll stop improving. So if you really wish to overcome skill plateaus, to improve faster, and to get closer to your gaming goals, then put the following lessons into action. First, eliminate the mindset that you're already good enough. Stop blaming external factors for your losses and recognize the difference between your peak performance and average performance, recognizing when luck is tricking you into thinking that you're good. And start also using data and feedback to gain an objective understanding of where your skills are really at and what you need to do to improve. As soon as you apply all of these tips, you'll be able to start climbing down from that skill plateau. You'll be able to bravely embrace the difficulties of hard training and emerge from the other side with far more confidence and far more skill. Hey guys, I hope you absolutely loved this video. If you did and you want to support the channel, then feel free to check out the Esports Elite course. It's basically a 66-day challenge set up to help you learn better and become better as a player. Use a lot of science and psychology and a lot of really nerdy things that quite honestly will give you a massive advantage over other players. So if you're super serious about ranking up and improving your skills, I recommend checking it out. Otherwise, if you just want to see more from the channel, then there's tons of free content right here. So I recommend checking out some of the playlists. I'll link one in the comments below in the pinned comment. And otherwise, if you want to keep sticking around for more content, then feel free to hit that notification bell. It's one of the best ways to support the channel. It's one of the best ways for you to stay up to date on what's next. So again, I hope you guys loved the video. I hope you keep on enjoying your grinds, and I'll see you all in the next video.